very good evening to all the participants and delegates. I begin today by acknowledging the contribution of our forefathers who have helped in creating a world based on freedom and human dignity. I extend my respect to people of diverse cultures, faith, color, and genders, and pledge to work for equity, inclusivity, peace, and harmony. I, Sajal Mishra, along with my co-host Prakriti Paliwal, students of DME Media School, welcome you to the first panel discussion of the sixth edition of the world's first 7-day staggered co-location conference, ICAN6. This is organized by DME Media School in collaboration with School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia, and is sponsored by Indian Council of Social Science Research. This time, ICAN6 is organized in a staggered format, which will take place at 4 different venues across India and abroad. Phase 1 will be held at Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, from 19 to 21st of June, and Indraprastha International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad, on 22nd June. Phase 2 will be in Motilal Chaturvedi National University for Journalism and Communication, Bhopal, on 21st of July, and the Daffodil International University, Bangladesh, on 5th and 6th of August 2023. I would like to take a moment and introduce organizer of the conference to our audience. Delhi Metropolitan Education is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi, and approved by Bar Council of India. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. ICAN6 has come up with the theme, Identity, Culture, and Agenda-Driven Newscast with the hashtag Cultural Identity for Diversity.
ICAN6 has support of more than 21 partners. The conference is sponsored by the Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR. Conference partners are IMCR Gen Section and GMEC, Global Media Education Council. Knowledge partners for ICAN6 are Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad, Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University for Journalism and Mass Communication, Bhopal, Adamus University, Kolkata, Institute of Applied Medicines and Research, Ghaziabad, and KSF, Keshav Suri Foundation. International partners are Daffodil International University, Bangladesh, Institute for International Journalism, Ohio University, USA, and Beacon House National University, Pakistan. Media partners are the Policy Times, Jai Hind Times, Quick News, and News 44. ICAN6 is powered by Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network Australia, India Film Practitioners and Researchers Network Australia, the Student Council of DME Media School Spark, RIM, Research Center of DME, and Richmond Fellowship Society, Delhi branch. Since 2018, DME Media School has been organizing the international conference ICAN. The themes for the former editions were India and Changing Aspects of News in ICAN 1, Indian Cinema and Alternative Networks in ICAN 2, Issues of Community Agenda and News in ICAN 3, Information, Communication and Artificial Networks in ICAN 4, Inclusivity, Convergence and Alternative Negotiations in ICAN 5, Identity, Culture and Agenda-Driven Newscast in ICAN 6. This unique conference is conceptualized by Dr. Amrish Saxena, Professor and Dean of DME Media School. He is the convener of ICAN 6. I request Sir to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Prakriti. Welcome everybody to this evening session. Evening in India, obviously, it's because we are in different time zones. So this is a conference which is basically a media conference, a research-based conference, and this is the 6th edition. And each edition we have a different theme along with certain sub-themes. So this year, since our theme is identity, culture, and agenda-driven newscast. So a lot of sessions we planned on identity, and culture. And when it comes to cinema, these are the issues which reflect in some way or the other. So that is how we requested Mr. Praveen Nagda to conduct this session for us. And he has been closely associated in all the activities that we do, because besides this international conference, which has entered its sixth year, we also organize every year the annual Cinest International Film Festival, SIFI, which is again we organize in collaboration with Deakin University, Melbourne, and there also Mr. Nagda has been closely associated. So that is how we are meeting this evening for this session, and I'm really glad and grateful to Mr. Praveen Nagda to invite such a galaxy of experts in this session. So on behalf of Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME Media School, and ICAN6, I welcome all the guests in this session. Sean has been earlier also part of such sessions. I'm really grateful that he spared time for the activities that we organize. I'm also grateful to Sapna, to Brahmananji, to Shubha Shetty, to Akriti and Theodora, who have joined from different countries. I'm really grateful to all the participants who are there in this session. The whole audience is comprised of the media scholars, researchers, media academics, and obviously media students. So I'm sure that this session will be a fruitful one, and we will know a lot of things which earlier we were not knowing. So once again, thank you, Praveen Nagdaji, to bring this session to us. Over to you, Sajal. I think, Praveen Nagdaji, you can take over from here and can steer this session.
Sir, unmute, please.
Thank you, Amrish sir, for this great opportunity given to me to bring a excellent panel from all over the world. We can say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Canada, Greece, India. Now, let me just briefly tell you about each panelist that we have. So Sean is a multi-award-winning filmmaker based in Canada. Shubhaji is a journalist turned into producer. We have read her byline stories for many years, and now she is a filmmaker herself. Sapnaji is a filmmaker, and she is very well known and famous for her Sindhustan movie, where she has tattooed the whole story of Sindh on her body. Akriti is a filmmaker. Brahmanji is a filmmaker. He has done remarkable work on Jagjit Singh, some documentaries, and a couple of other films. We have Theodora. She is a media educator, filmmaker from Greece. So it's a great panel, very interesting panel. And moderating discussion with such great panelists is a honor for me also, actually, because I don't have to do much talking. They will talk. I'll only just trigger some discussion points for them. So where do we start from? Let's start from Shubhaji, who is a journalist, ex-journalist. So let us take some of her views on the on this topic. As we know, the culture is a very complex part for each and every country, and all the cultural identities, they shape up the culture for different communities, countries, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's gender, whether race or religion, or sexual orientation, a whole lot of things which are there, which form a culture of a country or a community, and they all of them are unique or different in each geographical locations, areas. They evolve in their own fashion. What's acceptable in one part is not acceptable elsewhere. How the same thing is represented in certain manner in some other geography. So all of these things sort of make a great impact on the social part of the country or geography, whatever that we would like to say. Cinema again plays a very important role, whether to shape the culture, whether to highlight the culture, whether to construct, and sometimes even destroy a culture. So it's a very strong form of communication. People understand culture and religious practices. Sometimes people form habits and develop their new attitudes. So let me ask Shubhaji to say a few things about how cultural entities shape our societies and what kind of impact they have. And then we'll talk to others also, everybody, and we'll move to a few specific points in our discussion within the time frame that we have. Shubhaji.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to be part of this discussion. I would want to, people say cinema is a great influencer as far as culture is, showing culture is concerned. I would like to think that cinema is not really an influencer. It is more an enabler. These influences are already within us, whatever the positive influences or negative influences, whatever it is, it's within us. We have certain things which the society has taught us, the environment in which we have raised. So when we watch a movie and the way a certain section is depicted or certain culture is depicted, we either accept it or reject it according to what we have already kind of, either they could be preconceived notions or prejudices or whatever it is. So culture, in a country, especially like India, culture is really important. And it while we celebrate the diversity within the country, it's also very difficult to, kind of encapsulate it in movies. But a lot of movies have done that uh, uh, in positive way too, and a lot of movies have done a lot of damage by depicting certain prejudices in a negative way. That's what I would like to say, start with.
So good point made. Cinema is not just an influencer, it's also an enabler. Yes, we do have prejudices and somewhere they reflect. Sean, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I mean, cultural identities have played a significant role in shaping societies through cinema, and it's done in several ways. One specific way I'm thinking that I thought of an example from Canada is through cultural preservation. So movies can act as a means to preserve and promote cultural heritage, and filmmakers often draw inspiration from their own cultural backgrounds as a tool to celebrate traditions and customs and language. And there was a film that came out in Canada a couple of years ago. It was an Indigenous film that was filmed in a language spoken by only 30 people. So this movie came out and it preserved this entire language that is threatened of being lost. So I think film has an incredible is a major tool to preserve culture. It's in a beautiful way through storytelling.
Excellent, Sean. That's a very good point made. In India also we have some languages in remote northeast, and they need to preserve. Very few people speak, so there are some films made on that. Brahmanandji, you have to unmute, please.
Yes, I hope you can hear now. Yes, so I think they're both absolutely interwoven with each other. There is no doubt about that. We have seen how cinema has changed, the way the cultural influences have changed, and the way cinema has changed, it again in turn influences the culture. So these two have a very, very symbiotic relationship as such. So I think that what probably still needs to be done and is not being done in the proportion that I would like to see is that the way society progresses, the way society changes or matures over a period of time, it should reflect that much strongly in cinema. And here, when I talk about cinema, I'm talking about I'm trying to include television and OTTs in it, web series in it, because we are talking about stories that we see constantly. So I feel that we as writers, as filmmakers, as producers, as telecasters, as platform runners, have a long way to go to understand that defining responsibility that we have towards enabling society to move on much, much more than we are seeing it. And we'll talk more about it, but I'm talking about simple things like gender equality or gender sensitivity and things like that, you know. And I'm also referring to a lot of regressive stories that end up being shown because it probably has a lot of potboiler prospect, and probably it may work very well at the box office. So I think somewhere that line of business versus responsibility as artists, you know, needs to come closer to each other, and good stories, responsible themes, responsible writing, responsible making needs to be probably encouraged in terms of merging the two, the cultural identity and the stories that we see day in and day out. Some great things are happening, but all I'm trying to say is that we still have a long way to go.
Well said. Akriti ji, coming to you.
Yeah. Hi. So I've been thinking about this topic ever since you sent the mail. And I'm thinking that since filmmaking is also an artistic expression, like making a painting or writing a book or any other such thing. So when we start making something, when we start making a film, whatever we are as a person is anyways reflected in our creation. We cannot create anything apart from us because we are creating it. So all I want to say is that yes, we have to reflect the cultural changes. We have to talk about various things, but we would only be able to talk about them once we are experiencing them, once we are thinking about them outside the film. I can only make a film about gender equality if I think about it every day, every moment of my life, and I use it, like I work on it in my life. Like you can't write a hero's journey unless you have been on a hero's journey. So I don't know, we'll have to, it's a mutual process. The culture will tell what the film will be, and the film will tell what the culture is. So it's such an interesting and mutual topic that we have to be aware. We have to be aware that we have to represent these things. We have to talk about languages in Northeast, for example, or the dialects in India. But can I talk about them if I don't know about them in life? So it's a very thin line, because as an artist, you can only make things that you are. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting thing to think about, is all I'll say as a start.
So you make the things that you are and you become what you make. It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
Sapna ji.
Hi. This is actually, Sindhi is a language that is dying. So this is something that, as a culture, we're very concerned about that, because since we don't even have a state in this country, we don't have a DD channel dedicated to us either, even though we've been fighting for it. Like me, I cannot speak my language, but I can understand it. And there are many others like me. I mean, it's ridiculous how Sindhi is just dying, but that does not mean that every film, that a Sindhi makes has to be about Sindh and has to be in that language. I feel that's ridiculous and too much pressure. I started off with Sindhustan, but my second film is extremely experimental. So having that pressure, oh my God, your first film was all about culture. Now we're only expecting that from you, is also a bit bizarre for a filmmaker, because like Akriti said, we are many things and many facets. I feel that I'm against censorship on all levels, all. If you want to make a film talking badly about women, you know what? It's your right. You can do that. If I want to make a film encouraging women rights, That's my prerogative, and I will do that. I think the biggest thing here is actually education. And it's how people are raised from the very beginning. So you know good from right. I don't think it is a film's job to preach. It's not moral of the story that we are very used to in India. Every book, every film, everything has to have a moral of the story. Sometimes there is no moral. Okay, it's only a story. And it's called fiction also for a reason. So even if someone is making fiction and it does not go with your sensibilities, whatever they might be, I don't think that you can sit here and bash that filmmaker, because that's a filmmaker who has the right to make that film. Someone has backed it, and they're going around the process. But what we can do is the education. People growing up, all the students who are here, I mean, you need to know good or bad. I mean, I don't think I know. Even I didn't know the history of Sindh. I don't think many people even know that. So I did my job with Hindustan. I will do my job again with another film, but I also want to make horror films. No judgment, please.
So that's the creativity, and I mean that's a part of the culture. I mean, there are horror stories. There are stories which our grandparents would tell. There are stories of fairy tales, and the same thing is, so it's.
I don't want to cut you off, Praveen, but yeah, in a land like India, where every culture, every religion has so many superstitions, everything, vastu, I mean, everything, if this is wrong, something bad is going to happen. There are so many bads that are going to happen to you compared to the goods, that we're constantly looking at things. Oh my God, if I do this, something bad is. So this is the land of horror. I mean, if we're not making horror films, why are we even here? You know what I mean?
No, if I may add, while I agree with what Sapnaji says, there should be no censorship at all. But I guess the filmmaker himself or herself should come with some kind of responsibility towards society. It shouldn't be a free for all. Like even an actor, if he's given a role where, we only see a particular minority religion, we only see them shown as, villains. So if it's something that kind of is hammered through every film possible. So if I think of the filmmaker himself or herself should come with certain responsibilities, while I'm okay with the freedom of expression and all that, but there has to be certain responsibility towards the society, how you portray whatever your portrayal of anything is, how you portray it. Are you doing it sensitively? Are you doing it from the human perspective is what matters, I guess.
Correct. Well made the point. Theodora, can we hear something from you from the international perspective, from the global perspective? How you have some examples, if you have some thoughts, please talk to us about it.
Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. I will talk from the point of Greek, who comes from a very small country, who produces very little films. And generally, Greeks are portrayed in the big films in a caricaturistic way, as many ethnicities or cultures. But I would like to focus on the education, because I liked this connection. As a media educator, I wanted to say that it's very important to build the audience of the future, because the filmmakers of the future will come from the youngsters who become the audience. And I am constantly thinking about what kind of films can children and viewers find to watch, because nowadays we produce very many films all over the world. Anyone can produce a film by a mobile, but this does not reach an audience. Thinking that when someone has watched thousands of Hollywood films, has formed a vision of the world, how it should be, but this is not really quite right. And it's a responsibility of the distributors, of the producers, of the film festival directors, of the media educators, of the TV channels to give films that depict a big variety of cultures, this diversity of cultures to the audience, because audience cannot easily find the diversity in mainstream platforms. This is what I was thinking.
Thank you, Theodora. And now we let's look at how cinema has represented various cultural identities globally. Can we have some thoughts on that? Sean, you would like to say something?
Sure. I think global cinema has represented various cultural identities by showcasing the diversity of human experiences and shedding light on different cultural contexts. If you want some examples, just a movie that everybody might know is Black Panther. I mean, it's set in a fictional land of Wakanda, but it's clearly influenced by various African cultures and emphasizes the themes of identity and heritage and empowerment. And then looking around the world, there's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's a Chinese film that explores Chinese culture and martial arts traditions. It showcases the value of honor and loyalty and sacrifice, all those attributes within this historical setting, and it offers a glimpse into Chinese identity and storytelling. Another one of my favorites is from Spain, Pan's Labyrinth. It's a Guillermo del Toro film, and it's a Spanish film that weaves this dark fairy tale against the backdrop of the Spanish Civil War, I think, and it delves into the myths and folklore of Spain and reflects on the power of imagination and resistance and the impact of war on individuals. So I think that those are just a few examples, but global cinema encompasses a vast array of films from different cultures that explore and represent various cultural identities.
Absolutely. And if you look at American cinema, they have really talked about the cause of racism and the way blacks were portrayed at some point in time, and all those things are very noteworthy as far as the representation of cultural identities is concerned. Similarly, you have the same thing in India, in locally here. Ramanji, can you speak something about it? How the cultural identities have been represented in Bollywood, in regional cinema, how they have been shaped, and how the film has represented them and put it to the public.
See, I feel that I mean it's true world over. I mean, like once you have seen the Iranian cinemas, once you have seen Japanese films, you have seen European world cinema, you have seen Korean films, you have seen the blockbuster Hollywood films, you've seen British Canadian films. You definitely tend to know much more about the mindsets of the people, and mindsets drives cultures, So I think that it's always a very, very refreshing way to understand culture by seeing that country's films. In India, for example, you had the 50s where the new nationalistic films were portrayed so wonderfully in the form of various love stories and social backdrops, So that gave you an impression of a very, very ambitious nation at that point of time. And things changed now. Things became a little regressive, I say, because it became very formula oriented, which is what we take from Hollywood, which is why, like to me, Hollywood films add much less in terms of your cultural understanding of the place compared to European films or Eastern films, so to say. But I think things have changed dramatically, and again and gets reflected from the time of, say, let's say, Dil Chahta Hai at the turn of the century, I think showed a big break in terms of characterization, in terms of plots, in terms of the way people spoke, behaved. And today we have a whole lot, for example, where you no longer cloak things. You have ambitious people, you have mindsets which don't think of sex or sexuality as a taboo, and you have all kinds of things coming up. I have some problem with the regressive television and some parts of cinema also. When I talk some parts, I talk about films like Kabir Singh, for example, which to me are dangerous representations, because it's the hero there becomes role model to countless young people who feel that if you love passionately, then you also have a right to do whatever you want with your partner, and get away with it. So I think that kind of a thing I called regressive, and I think that it gets shown. And if it gets shown in a positive way, then we are still showcasing the way our society is changing or improving, whatever you call it. But I think we have seen a lot of films way before its time. A film like Guide, if you take, now it tried to set a trend about how women needs to be treated way before we woke up to the thing in a more popular way. And those are the thoughts. I think those are what I call writers who are responsible and visionary, filmmakers who are responsible and visionary, and who add value to the society. The kind of influence that cinema has, for example, I mean, the way people behave, the way people clothe themselves, the way people have hairstyles, we all have seen. I mean, there was a Rajesh Khanna wave where everyone tried to dress and have hair like Rajesh Khanna, and but the same thing about Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan or something. I mean, people like to talk. Children, youngsters who are exposed a lot today to Hollywood films, they acquire an American accent even before they step into America, So people who go there and then they imbibe the language and the accent there after staying for a year or 2 or 5 years, one can understand. It's very natural, okay? But here you have youngsters who talk and behave and use those idioms, even without living that life. But a lot of it, there's a portion of people who are living that life just because Hollywood films have influenced them. So what I'm trying to share here is that we have a great responsibility. We can see the influence as almost symbiotic, like I said earlier, and we need to focus a little bit more on the things that can bring about a positive impact and positive change. Though I agree with Sapna that even people who make regressive films, they have every right to make regressive films because, well, they might relate with it or they might believe like that. But as more objective viewing progressive artists, if I can call many of us, I think we owe that much more responsibility towards nurturing an art form, and taking it, mixing it with the sociological angle that we are talking about today, because they are we are talking about a very powerful medium, very, very powerful medium.
Absolutely. And when you talk of the progressive way of life, when you look at the new things, when you embrace new elements very fast, what happens is the change is not slow, it's abrupt. And that abrupt change often impacts the society in a very negative kind of manner. And I mean, you see today there's a lot of content on OTT, which, one cannot sit and watch when you're sitting in a family. Not even forget the kids, even if, you're sitting, husband wife sitting also, you will probably sometimes feel a bit embarrassed. So it's a different.
But that I would just like to interject, just one line or two line, that I would go by Sapna there, what she was trying to communicate, that these things are bound to happen. People will make things which are very
Absolutely
advanced, and whether you sit and watch it with your family or not has to be your choice. I mean, nobody is forcing you to sit and watch it with your family if you're embarrassed. But if you're open and you want to sit and watch with the family,
Absolutely.
it's
So
perfectly fine. Like there are many families that I know who watch and they're perfectly at ease, but there are many who are not. So then luckily OTT gives you that option. Don't watch, or have television sets in every room, so that
yeah,
you can,
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. So that differs from society to society, country to country, geography to geography. I mean, what is acceptable in America is probably not acceptable here. And we are, so what I was trying to say is that when the change happens and the change happens abruptly, then there's a problem basically, and the society has to adjust with that change. And that's where the filmmakers also do have a responsibility, and society also has a responsibility, and they all have to work together with each other. Shubhaji.
I do agree. There's a lot of changes that have happened, and we have so much exposure as far as cinema is concerned. My teenager daughter can watch a Japanese movie. She's exposed to everything. So we are not restricted with anything. But having said that, I genuinely believe that our filmmakers from 50s, 60s, 70s were far more progressive than what is being done today. Because probably we are all worried about the PILs flying here and there. You're so worried about offending everyone and anyone and everyone. We are a scared lot as of now today. We are not really portraying what we genuinely want to portray. Even if somebody has a good intention of showing something, they're all worried. We are all worried right now. So the changes that should have happened as of now in Indian cinema, I think is not really happening as of but then there are certain really amazing films which show a lot of a lot of diversity within the country. Like I would say Chak De was one of those films which it spoke about female empowerment, and then it could be a token thing, but it did have people from all over the country, which was not shown earlier. Somebody from Far East being represented there. It's one of the movies it just came to my mind. So I think, yeah, culturally, there's a lot of changes to happening, but I wish it could have been much more.
Thank you, Shubhaji. I think, see, it's a very good point that you have made regarding Chak De. Now, similarly, there are a lot of, it's not just entertainment. Basically, when you look at the culture, it's very complex, very wide, it's very deep. And there are so many more aspects the filmmakers can, explore. Sports, food. I mean, we most often our films get stuck at a religion or some kind of, nationalistic thing. But there is way beyond that. There are so many opportunities and areas one can look at. Who would like to say, Akriti, can you talk something? How documentary films can probably be a great influencers. We have most often talked about typical masala films or theme social themes led films. How a documentary can play a very key role in.
I would say not just documentary of course, but even small independent films can work as in towards this change. Because when we talk about films, like when we say Bollywood films, which are helmed by stars and which have these production houses backing them, no one cares about culture or story or anything. The only thing they care about is money. It's in the service of money. The film is in the service of money. So maybe probably where documentary films and independent films can help is because I don't know the economy of documentary films as of now, but I suppose it does not work like Bollywood. So they can take risks. They can be more honest. They already know that maybe our films are not for everybody. Maybe we have just this audience that we are catering to, and so we are more as Shubhaji said that we are scared. maybe we can be a little less scared when it is an independent film, where we know that, okay, not everyone is going to come after us. So maybe that is the way. And also we can go more local with our documentaries and our independent films, because we are not trying to cater to like the entire audience with all their money, like take 200 rupees from everyone in India for our blockbuster, whether it's worth it or not. We are not going for that. We are really interested in telling our stories. So maybe that's where the documentaries and independence would help.
Thank you, Akriti. Sean, I want to hear something from you on this role of documentary films and role of short films and, promoting the culture. Yeah. You have worked on some interesting documentaries. You can talk about your
Yeah.
personal experience also.
That's right. So I recently worked on a film called The Long Rider, and it's the story of this young man named Felipe Leite, who was deported from Canada. He was an immigrant from Brazil, and he was deported from Canada when his permanent residency lapsed. And to get back home to his family, he traveled on horseback from Canada to Brazil. Now that's over 13 different countries, and it took him 2.5 years to get back home to his family. And so our documentary, traveled with Felipe through Canada, the United States, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and then to Panama, Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. So it was an amazing experience to see all these different cultures represented on screen in one film. And because the documentary was, cameras were on the ground following this character, and we were following Felipe's journey, it was remarkable to see how different cultures are across the Americas, at least, and to witness it through one character's arc and travel story. But and then I hear you talking about how cinema can be at times misused. Hopefully my film is a more positive aspect of representation, but throughout, I was thinking as you were all speaking, there's a new Indiana Jones film coming out, and I wanted to show my kids the earlier films, and we were watching Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and my mind was blown watching it now. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, just how negative the stereotypes are against Asian culture and Indian culture. There was these harmful stereotypes that just were washed over me as a child, but looking back at it now as a more educated film goer and individual, I could see how dangerous sometimes these blockbusters can be, or just how we grow up with these images in our head, and just how later, once you have an education, those are abolished. So cinema can be quite dangerous sometimes, I think.
Right. There are such examples. There are some movies which do play a destructive role rather than constructive role. But let's look at how I want to ask you some more questions on little controversial subjects, not very normal topics. So let's look at a democratic setting like in India or a US, probably, where there's much more freedom of speech, and look at a countries like China or a Korea, for that matter, which are very closed kind of economies, closed countries. There's no communication, and the communication is very controlled. Now, how cinema can impact in their cultural identities, how those things evolve there, how it shapes the culture or prevents something. On that, any thoughts that you may have? Maybe I'll ask something to Shubhaji first and then move to other panelists.
I think a lot of it is sometimes politically motivated, a lot of movies, and a lot of things are done, just to, democracy or no democracy. You see a lot of things are being done, with an agenda. But having said that, it's great to be part of the democratic country where, you're allowed to, probably you'll have to fight a little more at the censorship, whatever, but then you get an opportunity to do a whole lot of things which you want to. I mean, we continue striving to do films that are close to our hearts, even if it might not suit certain sections of the society. But yes, there have been a lot of things which have been done over the years, which have kind of, harmed or probably, kind of help the prejudices that people have about certain communities and about women. So there have, like, I've heard there is, I don't know, there's something called the RIS test. Like the actors, like Riz Ahmed and other actors, they've taken a stand that they will not participate in a film where, say, Muslims are being only shown as negative characters, or there are certain things that are being implemented, which is not, I hope that happens in India too, that, we take responsibilities as filmmakers, as actors, to not portray certain things which we think could be harmful in the long run for the society in general.
Sapna ji, please.
I have many things to say, actually. I've just been thinking. So one, my father started Bombay's first cabaret bar called the Blue Nile. This was in days where there was no alcohol. It was late 60s to early 70s. My first birthday in 1972, I was watching the cabaret with families. So this is coming back to you, Praveen, how it was never a bad thing. People used to watch the cabaret. It was very acceptable. I have photos of me dressed in a white maxi, drinking a Coca-Cola, watching the cabaret. And it was very acceptable. Even performers like Bindu, I mean, you could call them whatever negative characters or Helen, but they really take pride in their art form. And it's very important that people understand that I run a women's film festival for this reason. You can try to say this is a negative character, like Shubhra was saying, but the point is that we have to own these things, yeah? We own the fact that we do dance at bars, and there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Until we don't do that, I mean, you can't just stop all films from portraying women as good and bad, because we are good and bad. You can't just be like, all women are great, all men now suck. I mean, that's also quite ridiculous, right? So I'm just saying I was raised very progressive. I was raised in a cabaret bar, for other things. So in my head, my family, we don't really look at anything as nudity or bad. It's education. It was done at a very early age. And I think it's very important, especially since we are in a university and we're talking to students. Education is the most important thing you can give to your child as a teacher or as a parent, so they can make up their own minds about what they want to do without you also putting it in their heads what is good and what is bad, because there is no such thing. It's very subjective. What's good to you might be really bad to me, and the other way around. People are different. Everyone is different. You can't expect one person to think the same. Okay, all this is good, all this is bad. Aise nahi hota hai na? So these certain things, as a filmmaker, I try to break in my films that I don't preach to you. You come up with what you want to come up. As a documentary filmmaker, my second film is Hybrid, where I have taken the liberty of destroying what is real and mixing it with the unreal. So if you don't know where the boundaries are, that's where they're gonna be, And Akriti, actually, I must disagree with you, because even as an indie filmmaker and a documentary filmmaker, my goal, yes, is to make whatever I want, but my goal is also to make money. Yeah. Since no producer is paying for my films, I want to make money.
Yeah,
so I can continue making the films I want to make because I know a producer is not going to give it to me.
Yeah.
So we need more platforms.
What I just wanted to say was that money is not the first thing in your film. It's not, your film is not in the service of money. Money is in the service of your film. But in Bollywood films, everything is in the service of money.
That's I don't agree with that.
That's also not true. Yeah.
That's not true. It is business. At the end of it, it's business.
It is a business. Yes. Yeah. Bollywood is a business, and not all is, and money is not a bad thing. Let's just
Of
face
course
it.
not. Of course not. But I mean, most of the Bollywood, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I feel that in most of the Bollywood films, everything is like the marketing guy will tell you, ye chalega, ye nahi chalega, this will work, this won't work. You choose actors based on the money that they'll give you rather than would they suit that role. There could be a better person who would do that role in a better way. But would a Bollywood filmmaker ever choose that person over the money that they'll get?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Akriti,
No,
Akriti,
but like
I
Sapna ji
would like
said,
to.
sorry,
I-
but like Sapna ji said, there are good producers and bad producers.
Yeah, and Bollywood is changing. Bollywood is
Yeah.
not just the 4 stars anymore.
So-
It's really not. There are
we are
people like Manoj.
slightly
Rajpal
we are
great.
slightly digressing.
So,
I'm sorry
so
to interrupt. We are
Akriti,
No, no, okay,
slightly
I'll come.
digressing.
Sorry,
Okay.
We are
sorry,
digressing
if I
slightly.
can,
sorry.
So, I want to come back. I want to come
One
back
is
to.
taking over our discussion now.
No, no, no.
I want to
I'm
come back
saying
to. I want to come back to Brahmanand Singh ji.
so
I want to
Praveen,
hear him out on the.
Praveen, I'd like to just take on from Akriti and Sapna. I
No,
think
I want to ask you
Sapna has said,
specifically on democratic setting like in India versus controlled environment like China, and how does
I want to say something about this actually. Can I?
Yes.
Because I was coming to that because I
Yeah.
was just in
Sure.
Korea last year. I was invited to be a part of a school. I was flown out to South Korea. And I must tell you one thing though, however you want to name it and call it, Korea is actually one of the biggest film producers in the world where they have managed to create an ecosystem where nobody cares about Hollywood. They are only watching their local films. Even on their platforms, nobody cares. They are consumed by their language, by their local stories. And when I was there last year, I was part of a school. And just to watch that and hear people talk of how proud they are that they have come to a point where their economy is not based on a Hollywood film or a film made in Europe. They are very proud of what they're making and they are consuming what they are making. So I have to tell you, I mean, whatever said and done, but South Korea is killing it. They are killing it in the world. I mean, we are waiting for what they're going to do next. You
so
know,
Praveen, if I can just combine all of these
yes, please.
that are being said, I also feel that like Korea has become its own Hollywood. Okay, it doesn't care for Hollywood, but it's in the bargain become its own Hollywood in the sense that you have again similar rigor. See, like Shubha has mentioned, and we all know it is a commercial setup, so money is important. There is nothing wrong with it. But what I'm trying to share here is that uh, taking that line from Shubha that we are all somewhere scared to make any film that we want to make because there are so many kinds of censorship, and we are talking about the government censorship. We are talking about the producer censorship. We are talking about the actor censorship. We are talking about these organizational censorship. You know, who suddenly find a problem with any and everything that you have to say. What I feel probably is the solution is that if what Akriti says about money is fine, there is no problem with money, money being one of the riders. But I'm saying that if we democratize the subject and the artistic value of our films much more in comparison, it's already happening, make no mistake. It's much more eclectic today than it used to be 20 years back, right? You can today have a good subject and go ahead and get funds to make a film and get a studio to back it if you are treating it well. So there is no doubt about that. But I have one more thought which takes the subject that we are talking about today. I feel that from the films that are being made, at least 30% of films should be selected by some kind of a panel, some kind of a body, which becomes part of schools and colleges. I think because films represent lives, okay? If we are talking about culture, if we are talking about society, if we are talking about art, it cannot remain secluded. It cannot remain polarized as entertainment versus education, something like that. It has to overlap. So a lot is changing in education. And I think that it's time that education slots schools, colleges slots time and categories for films. So I think if 30% of films can be handpicked and shown, and there's a panel or a debate or something or the other that is being, the way we are doing today, is happening after every single show. I think it's a great opportunity for us to just open up the society and the artists and the producers and the government, everyone put together.
That's a very good
Yes,
thought.
sorry,
That's a very
I
good
wanted,
thought.
sorry, I wanted to say that this was my point earlier, and I wanted to point out that I have listened many times Greek students, children or students of the university, watching a Greek film and saying that they watched a film in Greek language for the first time in their lifetime. I mean, it's not everybody is a cinephile. We have to give access to other people to help them find representations of themselves in a way. Sorry.
And Brahmanand, it is actually happening in a smaller way. Like there is this Dainik Jagran festival, which, they choose a certain films and they take it all over the country. They take it to smaller villages, they take it to rural areas, and they show it to students. Then there are festivals which give large concessions to students to, watch, like Mumbai Film Festival. And I think, hold special screenings for students to come and watch films world over, which they think.
With a slight difference, Shubha, I feel what we are talking about
Yes, I understand, but
students coming to festivals, but I'm saying that films needs to go to students. There's a slight difference in terms of this scope.
Yeah, and there are people who are doing it on a smaller scale, but then what you're suggesting is great. But the thing is, who's going to, the big question is,
well, the cat,
who the panelists, who's going to be who's choosing the jury members? That kind of changes the whole game. You understand? With,
but it's not so difficult. If things could happen with film festivals, there are hundreds and thousands of festivals happening. Why can't it happening at the school and institute level? It just takes, 2 steps forward and putting together a set of people. I mean, if Praveen can do this here for 1.5 hours, I mean, why can't somebody do it at the institute? So I'm just saying that it's a thought which, if implemented, it can change dramatically our social fabric, moral fabric, artistic fabric, educational fabric. Thereby, it can ventilate our minds. It can open our minds. What films does is it nudges you from all corners, So it makes you a better human being as such. And that's why we go to watch films. What curriculum education does is it gives you a lot of information, knowledge, curiosity, everything. But somewhere or the other, we are transiting that phase where knowledge, information, Eliot's line decades back, that where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? So I think that information, knowledge, wisdom, that gradient, we are somewhere crossing. Today, if you want to know anything about geography and about monsoons, how it travels, you don't always have to depend on what the school taught you. You can Google, and in 20 minutes, in 40 minutes, you can probably know, oh, okay, so that is the way it travels. That's why in Chennai, it comes in December, because it's the retreating monsoons and things like that, which you might have studied in school, forgotten, or you might have been absent and therefore you never knew about it, and so on. I'm saying that what Google or so much of information overload has done today in a good way should be made use and can create scope for more evolved inputs like cinema. I feel cinema, novels, these are much finer inputs if interpreted, discussed, adopted, adapted, so on and so forth. So that was the thought, and what you're saying is perfectly right. Everything that we are talking about is happening, it's changing. The only need is probably, can we up the scale, can we up the speed, and so on.
I like what you said about that difference between bringing students to a festival to watch films, or versus bringing films to students. And there's an organization now in Canada that's been developed across the country. It's called Real Canada, and it brings, it's like a traveling festival of Canadian films brought into schools. And so there's right now teachers can request films and a filmmaker to come into their school to showcase a film, and it comes with an education guide as to how to speak to the filmmaker about what questions to ask. And it's a remarkable, volunteer run organization that is across the entire country. And it's students are, they're exposed to films that they wouldn't normally see or choose, and it prompts a discussion about our national art form and the diverse voices that go into making films, and it's oftentimes it's a highly educational and entertaining effort for schools to deliver to their students. It's remarkable.
That's wonderful.
There you are. I mean that's exactly the
That's
thing that we are talking about with on a larger scale. In short, what Spick McKay, for example, is doing at school level, similar thing can be thought out with films. Nobody has thought about
Absolutely.
it in India.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The best screening I had for Sindhustan was actually in 2 schools, and there were all these kids. The thing is, even our textbooks don't teach you about Sindh. So even you can't even learn about Sindh even if you wanted to, because they don't teach you anything about it. So those kids, and plus because it's tattooed on my legs, so they were so fascinated because they watched the film and then they wanted to see it like on my legs. It was just fabulous. This is something I want to do more of, actually, just take it to schools. Yeah.
Amazing.
Absolutely. So that's where the whole the role of cinema, which is very important in shaping up the cultural identities, and you catch them young, you go to colleges, you go to schools. Of course, you can do a lot of things of what you typically call of nation building or country building or everything. So how much time do we have, Manit ma'am? Accordingly, I can have 1 or 2 more questions, or we can
Yeah,
conclude the.
I think we can wind up in 5 to 10 minutes time maximum.
Yes. So then I'll ask one question, one small thing, which is again little controversial. Cinema as today has been used heavily in and in when you talk of patriotism or nationhood or setting your political agenda. Can it also be used in a more constructive manner, bringing more inclusivity, enhancing the whole social fabric, uh, bringing people together instead of creating differences? And there, what is I mean, of course, we talked a little bit about role of filmmakers, but it's not just filmmakers. Filmmaker is influenced by a lot of factors around the society. So the role of people and filmmaker both, how does it work out, how what's in which direction cinema should move, that should help the country grow constructively and become help, it should help make it a better world, and not to create sort of differences or alienations of people. Any thoughts on that you may have? Please, Shubhaji, I think we can start from you.
It should be. Obviously, movies are for this, to, kind of bring good changes. There are a few films that are being done that talk about caste politics, that talk about, victimization of minority or women empowerment. That, like, there was a film called Article 15, but it's being not done. It's rare and don't come as often as they should. But there are a few films that are being made which do talk about these things and which do talk about the changes that we need in the society. And sometimes they're not accepted well, but they are being made, which is heartening. And like one of our films, Aparna Sen's The Rapist, we speak about, we go beyond why rapes happen, but we speak about what is it, how is a rapist born, or are they made because of the circumstances around it? It's a very controversial topic, but it's something that makes people want to, rather than demonizing somebody, it it kind of wants people to think about people as humans. So there are a lot of movies that are being made now in a smaller way, probably, but yes, it's being made, and it's wonderful to see that.
Akriti ji, your take on this?
It's true. Films are being made on both the sides. I mean, there are films that are divisive, but yeah, of course, there are films that are so heartwarming, and you watch them and you feel like, oh wow. I just watched recently. I might. I think it's called 2018. It's a Malayalam film. It was in cinemas in Mumbai. It was about the floods in Kerala, and oh my god, it was so. I was crying halfway through the film. Half of the film I was crying because it was so heartwarming. It showed people coming together to help each other, and yeah, films have a lot of influence, of course, and all kinds of films are being made. As Shubha said, it's true. Yeah, we are making some good films, some films that are helping us get together. Also, I would like to say, since we have a lot of women filmmakers now, we are getting new kind of stories. I mean, if there is a story about thinking about how is a person who rapes, is he born, or is the society influencing him? Wow, like kudos to it. It's brilliant. So since filmmaking is being more open, has opened to more people, we are getting diverse stories, and I think this is exciting.
Sean, from international perspective, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know about the other esteemed guests on the panel, but one of my favorite things to do as a filmmaker is to travel to different film festivals in other countries, and yeah, and to experience a film that I've made or a colleague has made from my home country of Canada, and I'm proud to see those stories reflected on screens, not in our country, in other countries. So in a sense, that's patriotism, what you were talking about earlier. So cinema has the ability to evoke these strong feelings of patriotism and love of one's country, and through these patriotic themes and symbols and narratives, I mean, films can inspire that sense of loyalty and devotion towards one's home country. And I don't know. I think or at the Oscars as well. I mean, or some other globally recognized event. I love when I see someone from Canada take the stage at a multi global event. Like Sarah Polley from Toronto won an Oscar for writing her script "Women Talking" this year, and it was really inspiring for us as Canadian filmmakers. I'm specifically from Toronto, where she's from as well. So to see a colleague on the national scale being represented for her film was really inspiring. So I think cinema has the power to evoke that strong sense of patriotism.
Great. So I think it's time to conclude the discussion. Thank you, everybody. It was quite interesting discussion. There are a lot of interesting things that we had discussed. Cinema is an enabler, not just influencer. It has a certainly cultural presentation. When we talked about those languages and all that, Sapna ji had talked about the artistic expression and freedom of speech and all in as much in detail. Documentary films, all yes, like you have typical masala films or typical Bollywood films or typical entertainment films. There are documentary films which can really make a difference when it comes to representing the culture and building the cultural identities. And of course, there are things which are disturbing. At the same time, there is a good cinema which is also happening. So it's not that we have to give up hope on things that are divisive or that are problematic to certain communities or how they are represented. But there are a lot of good things also happening. Therefore, the role of cinema is very important in creating new cultural identities that could be constructive, that could be good for the country and the world. With this, I think we can conclude today's session. Over to Ambrish sir and hope that we'll meet again in the coming sessions, coming years. And I hand over the parent to Amrish sir, please.
Thank you, Praveenji. Obviously, we will meet again in SIFI, the Cinesta International Film Festival. And the way we have tried to take this conference ICAN to different locations, not only within the country but outside. At this conference is divided into two phases. This first 4 days, and then we are going to Bhopal for 1-day conference, and then we are going to Dhaka for 2 days conference. Similarly, the SIFI, the film festival, we will be taking to different countries from this year onwards. So that is how, I mean, we can meet more people, we can have exchange on diverse ideas on different kind of films and filmmakers. So definitely we will meet again in November and December this year. So I hand it over to here to Manmeet.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you to our eminent panelists who have shared so much rigorous thoughts about cinema, filmmaking, the responsibility of the filmmakers, the fraternity of cinema as a whole. I must say that I have taken notes regarding Shubha ma'am, that actually Praveen sir has already concluded the session. So there is nothing much left for me to conclude the session, but definitely I would really like to quote here regarding Sapna ma'am's anecdote regarding the Korean entertainment industry. Undoubtedly, the Korean entertainment industry has actually overruled the world. Not only the Koreans only, but everyone in the world, across the world, be it Americans, Indians, anyone in the world, they are actually watching Korean films, Korean dramas, Korean that pop stars, pop songs, everything they are consuming from the Korean entertainment industry. And it is like an example for the world that every cinema from its own nation, they should do something progressive as the reflection of the society. And adding to Brahmanand sir quotes that there should be some 15 to 20% of the films which can be selected by the selected panelists across the country, which can be the part of the educational institutions, because experiential learning is the part of today's time, today's knowledge. And I think cinema is the best mode, best type of experiential learning where youth, kids, school-going kids, youngsters from the colleges, as well as all the scholars and academicians, they can learn a lot from all the selected films by the selected filmmakers. Thank you so much. I have got your short profiles, everybody's short profile, and Sapna ma'am's profile is really very interesting, that her genre is into horror filmmaking, and everyone in their own genre. Thank you, Praveen sir, for getting this panel in the International Media Conference hosted by DME Media School. Thank you so much.
So who will take over from here? Sajal, you want to add something finally, or Dr. Susmita Bala is also there? Would you like to say something?
I request Bala ma'am to kindly make some concluding remarks for the session.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Manmeet. Thanks, Dr. Praveen Nagda, for this wonderful panel, having experts from different places in the globe. The session brought to us so many thought-provoking ideas, diverse thought. It was delightful to listen to Ms. Shubha, Ms. Akriti, Mr. Brahmanand, Mr. Sean, Ms. Thura, and Ms. Sapna. Thank you all for adding value to ICAN conference. Films, documentaries, short films are different genre. You discuss them in the perspective of culture, moral values, societal norms, and so on. Sharing so much information with distinct thoughts with us all. We appreciate that. We feel delighted. We feel obliged. We are enlightened. So thank you. Thanks again to all of you. Thank you.
So we come to the conclusion of this session. I would like to thank Mr. Praveen Nagda and Dr. Manmeet Kaur moderator and co-chair of this session, for their valuable time and for sharing their experience with us. I extend my gratitude to the management and leadership team of DME. Heartfelt thanks to Dr. Amrish Saxena for his guidance, Dr. Susmita Bala for giving us directions and support at every stage of this conference. Special thanks to the faculty members and staff of Media School for executing all the sessions. I would also like to thank the production and the technical team for providing the technical support. Special thanks to the newsletter and media coordination and social media team for the coverage of this event. I would also like to thank the designing team for creative support. Also wish to thank administrative staff of DME. Special thanks to our conference partners, knowledge partners, international partners, and media partners. The recordings of all the sessions of ICAN6 can be accessed through our official YouTube channel, DME TV, and follow our social media handles, ICAN page and DME page, and subscribe to DME TV. Next session will be our academic discourse of this mega conference that will take tomorrow at Manav Rachna and will begin from 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Till then, I, Prakriti Paliwal, with my co-host, co-anchor, Sajal, would like to take your leave. Stay tuned for many exciting sessions at ICAN6. Thank you.